Hey, hopes you all are well and healthy. In today's lecture, we are going to see the payment design basics for both rigid and flexible payment. We have already seen the different materials which will be used in payment. We have already seen that how to do the mix design using that constituent material, what are the properties of those material. We have also seen what is the properties of subgrade soil. So based on those studies, let's see how we're going to design the pavement. We have already seen that the pavement is made up of different layers, and these layers are made up of from the different materials, where the quality of the top layer is best and the quality of layer below are comparatively lesser, and ultimately we'll have these layer made over a natural soil or a prepared soil that is known as subgrade. What happens if you have a pavement? Let's suppose I have a pavement. This is my top layer, then I have some middle layer, and ultimately a subgrade. So what happens if I have some load? The load coming ultimately to the pavement surface will dissipate it from onto the lower layers. And what happens? The intensity of the load will decrease as we come down. So let's suppose intensity of the load is P naught here and intensity of load is P1 when it reaches to the subgrade. What I want that the intensity of P1 should be less than the stability of subgrade. In other terms, what I want that the intensity of the load should be less than the load taking capacity of the soil. This is the basic principle behind the pavement design or flexible pavement design. Let's see what are the different design requirements for a flexible pavement. So first main requirement is the load which is coming from the wheel should be reduced such that it comes lower than the bearing capacity of the soil before reaching to the subgrade. It should be strong to withstand all type of stresses. Adequate coefficient of friction should be there. A smooth surface to provide comfortable ride should be there. There should be less noise. This criteria are more relevant for a rigid pavement as compared to the flexible pavement. The surface should be dust proof. It should be impervious so that no more water should penetrate into the pavement, and it should have a longer design life and should have low maintenance cost. So here these things, low noise, dust proof surface or impervious surface, are more designed or more controlled by using a good quality material or during the mixed design time rather than at pavement design time. We have already seen what are the different design requirements. So main requirement is that we want to safely dissipate the load coming from the vehicle to the subgrade without any failure. Let's understand this by mapping the pavement design with design of some another structure. Let's take a beam. Let's take an simply supported beam. So in order to design this simply supported beam, first thing what you need to know is the load coming on the wheel. After this, you want to know some material characteristics. Then you need to know the type of foundation or support. Then you need to fix the failure point. It's when you will assume or when you will believe that your beam is fail. So in case of beam design, it might be the deflection, like deflection should not be more than this. So here deflection is your performance. Similarly, in pavement also, these design inputs will be required. So first design input will be the load, what load your pavement is going to take. Then about the foundation, that means the strength or stability characteristics of your soil or subgrade. Then the material characteristics. Now the material characteristics here can be represented in terms of elastic modulus of different layers or also in terms of resilient modulus. The soil characteristics also can be represented as CBR value or by resilient modulus MR value. Now here the materials used in the top layers are made up of bituminous materials. These bituminous materials are dependent upon temperature, also dependent upon the climate. So their dependency will also require the climate and temperature information. Also, the presence of moisture may affect the strength of your soil subgrade. So we also require the information about drainage or water present uh, in the pavement area. So these are the important parameters which will be required in pavement design. Let's see in detail how to measure these all parameters in case of pavement design. So most important thing is defining a performance criteria. In case of beam, that performance criteria could be the deflection or limiting deflection. So let's see what parameters we can fix to measure the performance in case of flexible pavement. In case of flexible pavement, there are two types of performance criteria which can be taken in account. So first criteria is fatigue. So fatigue is a type of cracking occurs in a case of bituminous pavement. You may see these are the different cracks. This occurs because of the fatigue. These cracks are resemblance or look like to the alligator skin, and that's why these cracks are also known as alligator cracking. What happened when temperature is less? Maybe in the range of 20 or 25 or 30 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, the material's stiffness is high and it have more characteristics or more susceptibility for a brittle cracking. So at the lower temperature, when a wheel load passes through the pavement, there may be some tension originated in case of bituminous layer. Suppose this is my pavement and this layer is my bituminous layer. What happens if some load is coming upon this layer? This layer might deflect a little bit. Due to this little bit deflection, and this is a lower temperature phenomena, so temperature is less. At lesser temperature, if this surface or this layer is brittle and there is some deformation, so layer will oppose that deformation, and that opposition or that resistance in deformation will come in a form of tensile strain develop at the bottom of your bituminous layer. So the strain developed at the bottom of bituminous layer will be a tensile strain, and because of this tensile strain there could be some cracking originated from bottom and may propagate towards up. So now this cracking may increase with more number of passes. So as number of passes increases, this cracking may increases. There may be several cracks, they may coalesce, and this crack may reaches up to the top surface of the pavement. So this is the type of crack which will be originated in this case, and this happens when the temperature of the pavement is in the lower range. This type of cracking is known as fatigue or alligator cracking. The first criteria for pavement design is the fatigue cracking. The second failure may occur because of rutting. What rutting is? Rutting is the deformation or permanent deformation of your asphalt pavement. What happens in case of higher temperature ranges? Let's suppose if the temperature is higher, let's suppose in the range of 40, 45 or 60 degrees Celsius. What happens? Let's suppose this is my pavement and this is top layer, this is my subgrade. So if load is coming, and this layer is made up of asphalt material, so the material in this layer is incompressible. So whatever the deflection coming on this layer, that will be carry forward to the subgrade. And this can only happen when your subgrade strength is less, and because of this load your subgrade deform. So this is the first type of rutting. This happens because of the lower stability or the bad quality of your subgrade material. So if subgrade deform, that deformation will reflect into the top surface, and you may see a gully like structure in the top surface of the pavement. Here in the figure you can see that. So this happens only in the wheel paths. So more number of vehicles or wheel passes through these gullies, this gully's depression will increase, and so on. So this can only happen when temperature is on the higher side, and this happens because of the vertical compressive stress on the subgrade. This is rutting type 1. There could be one more reasons of rutting, that is because of the failure in material itself. Suppose if I have this pavement and here my subgrade strength is intact and it's not deforming because of the application of load. But what is happening? My bituminous layer is deforming because of the poor utilization of this material. So this is the rutting type 2. This happened because of the poor mixture used. Pavement design use this second type of rutting in some different way. We'll see this later. In the pavement design, main rutting which is accounted for the design of thickness is rutting 1. That means one rutting happened because of a lower stability of subgrade. In case of rigid pavement, there are two types of failures which are accounted for pavement design. So these are the different type of cracks you can see on the pavement, which can be taken as a fatigue cracking. What happens when you lay your pavement or lay the concrete pavement? You might have, let's suppose this is my concrete pavement, you have laid, you might have some temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. What happens? The temperature may increase or decrease after laying. So let's consider a scenario at the night. So what happens at the night time? The temperature outside will be lower and inside it will be higher. Now because of this higher temperature in the lower side, the pavement will try to wrap like this. If this is the instance of my wrap pavement, what happens? Here in the bottom surface you might have some strain which is tensile and some strain on the top which is compressive. Now in this scenario there will be some stresses due to self weight of the concrete. Due to self weight, the stresses will be developed downwards, and because of this downwards load of self weight of concrete, the stresses in the top will become tensile and in bottom it will become compressive. Similarly, if you see, you have a pavement in the daytime, this is when it is night and this is when you have day. So at daytime the temperature outside will be higher and temperature below the pavements will be lower. Now because of this, what will happen? Now wrapping will happen in this time. Now if wrapping has happened in this way, that means there will be compressive strains develop at the bottom and tensile strain develop at the top. But again there will be self weight of the concrete and that will try to pull this pavement downwards, and because of this the resultant strain or ultimate strain on the top surface will be compressive in nature and tensile at the bottom. So the ultimate strain developed during the daytime in the pavement top side will be compressive and bottom side will be tensile, and during the night the top side will be tensile and bottom side will be compressive. Suppose in this case, if I have a wheel moving over the pavement, due to this wheel load, again the strain will be developed and there will be a tensile strain at the bottom, and because of this tensile strain at the bottom, there may be some cracks may initiate at the down part of the pavement and may propagate towards upward. This kind of cracking is known as bottom up tensile cracking. In case of night time, you have your pavement wrapped like this. In this case, suppose I have a vehicle which loaded my pavement at the edges. Now what happened when my pavement is loaded at the edges? Again the load effect will act the downward direction. This will initiate a compressive strain at the lower part and tensile strain at the upper part of the pavement. This originates cracking from the top of the pavement surface. This type of cracking is known as top down cracking or top down tensile cracking. So you can call it as BUC or call it as TDC. No, these both are form of a fatigue cracking, and these cracks started coalesces, propagates, started increases with increasing in number of repetition of the load. This is the first criteria which is accounted in case of rigid pavement for its design. Another mode of failure which is being accounted for designing of the rigid pavement is erosion. What happens? We might not have the other layer presents in case of rigid pavement, as there are many layer present in the case of flexible pavement. You might have a slab, and directly after the slab you might have your subgrade, or some cases you have a slab, then some middle layer of subbase, then a subgrade. So in case subgrade middle layers are not present and ultimately the low pavement is constructed over the subgrade, the reduction in the strength of subgrade will result failure in the pavement. The reduction in the subgrade strength can occur because of the erosion of soil present in subgrade. If this soil eroded because of the rain or water, the strength of subgrade may decrease. Here also, if this soil eroded, the strength of the pavement will decrease. So this also taken as an pavement design criteria. So in case of rigid pavement, there are two types of failure mechanism. One may happen because of the fatigue and second may happen because of the erosion. In IRC method of rigid pavement design, we don't account the erosion as a direct designing parameter, but we design the pavement for drainage. So such that proper drainage system can be constructed while constructing a pavement and there will be no failure because of erosion of subgrade. So to design the thickness of concrete slab, we only account for fatigue cracking as a criteria or as a mechanism of failure. So there will be two fatigue cracking mechanism, one top down cracking and second bottom up cracking in case of fatigue, while we will design our slab thickness as per IRC design method. Different factors which will be required for designing a pavement are traffic and loading. That means a load, map it with a beam design, then the environment, the climate, etc., then material characteristics, then failure criteria, and then a reliability. Reliability here will indicate that how reliable your design will be. Higher reliability will cause you more costly design. Lower reliability will cause you relatively less costly design. So in the cases when road infrastructure is less important, like rural road, etc., you may select a lower reliability, while in the case of national highway or expressway, you might need to select a high reliability design. Let's see these all factors one by one. So loading in the case of pavement is because of the movement of vehicles or load of vehicles. So in order to capture the traffic and loading for pavement design, we need to have the axle loads, the number of repetitions of the load, the contact area of tire with the surface, and the speed of vehicle. Let's see them one by one. There could be various configurations of load on the pavement. It might be single axle, it might be single axles dual tires, it might be tandem axle dual tires. And these different configurations of load might causes a different damage to the pavement. So in order to capture the loading on the pavement, we need to get the axle loads of all types of configurations over the pavement surface. Then we have already seen that the failure, whether it's the fatigue or rutting, accumulates with increase in number of repetitions. So here it may happen that one pass of the vehicle may not cause your pavement to fail, but pavement will fail because of the number of repetitions of the same load. So we need to know that what are the number of repetitions, or the what are the number of traffic will move on the pavement over its whole design life. So here, to predict this over a design life, you need to know the future traffic on the road. So this is often very difficult to determine. It considered the damage occurred on the each passes of the vehicles or each pass of the traffic. It uses the equivalent load. We'll see how it uses the equivalent loads to calculate the number of repetition correctly, and it must predict the future traffic. So we'll see how we'll account the future traffic while calculating the number of repetitions. We also require the contact area. So normally in design, we'll assume that the contact area is circular in nature. There are more research. Sometimes we account the tire contact area as an rectangular, sometimes circular, sometimes elliptical. So more or less here, just assume that it's in circular in nature for this course. Later on, if you are interested that what are different interaction, how it's going to affect your pavement design, and more discussion that you can follow in pavement design course, that CEG 518. So contact area shape of the tire is the function of what amount of load, what amount of tire pressure, tire stiffness, and tire wear. So not discussing too much about this. Only thing is that the tire contact area will affect the load calculation. That only the thing you need to understand at this point. Then the speed of the vehicle, the material reaction depend upon the speed. We have already seen the rate of loading thing while I was demonstrating you in the class with the silly putty material. You have already seen the importance of this speed or rate of loading in all the bituminous testing what you have performed in the lab. So normally the material is viscoelastic, that's why this thing is required. Then you need to have the temperature information because it affects the asphalt, it affects the PCC slab. We have already seen that wrapping will happen because of the temperature. That might be a force% penetration. There might be freezing and thawing cycles happening inside the soil that may decrease or increase your soil's stability. So we need this information. We also need the information about the precipitation because the soil erosion is governed by the precipitation or the rainfall in that region, and because of the rainfall we are going to design the drainage of the pavement. Here drainage design we are not accounting. If you want to understand in more depth what drainage design is, how it's going to affect, and how we are going to design a drainage system for the pavement, just follow up in higher level course of pavement design. In materials, will require the different material characteristics of hot mix asphalt, the cement concrete in case of rigid pavement, the granular material, and the soil material. Hot mix asphalt or bituminous material is a viscoelastic material, and these are sensitive to temperature and rate of loading that we have already. So what happens if a load is applied at a different level of temperature? So this is the stress applied on the viscoelastic material. So if temperature is low, it starts acting like an elastic material. So stress is directly proportional to strain, and once you have removed this stress, the strain directly went to zero. If temperature is medium, you that result a higher strain, and that strain will take some time to comes to zero when load is removed. At higher level of temperature, the strain generated will be high, and when you have removed the temperature, it will take higher amount of time to recover back to the original position. It might also happen that this never regain its original shape, or strain may never comes to zero, and this deformation or this not gaining the original shape, or because the strain is not coming to zero, this stored deformation in the material is known as permanent deformation. And with the increase in number of deformation, with increase in the number of cycle, this deformation will go on increase and increase, and this accumulated deformation in the pavement is known as rutting, what we have seen. Let's see how the rate of loading will affect the pavement performance. So suppose I am applying two stresses, one at lower rate and other at a high rate. So at lower rate, you will experience more strain in the material, and at high rate you will experience a less strain in the material. That's why a high speed moving vehicles are lesser susceptible for pavement failure as compared to low moving vehicle. So which vehicles are more dangerous for the road, whether it's a truck moving at 40 kilometers per hour, and whether it's a truck moving at 90 kilometers per hour. So it is a truck which is moving at a lower speed. So can you tell me one answer to one more question? Which pavement will require more thickness, whether a pavement which you need to construct on a parking lot, or a pavement which you need to construct for an expressway? Of course, a pavement which you need to construct at parking lot, because there the vehicle will be in standing position. So a standing vehicle may cause more damage to your pavement as compared to vehicles which are moving in the expressway. In case of PCC or Portland cement concrete, it's assumed to be linear elastic, and it will be insensitive to temperature and rate of loading. So the response of your Portland cement concrete will be similar to the response of an elastic material or linear elastic material. The granular material also assume that they are non-linear materials and not sensitive towards temperature and rate of loading, but they are sensitive towards the moisture content what they have and their density. So if you have high amount of moisture present in the soil or granular material, its stability will be decreased. So if you give a load to your granular material, and plot the stress strain, for loading path the stress will increase, with stress strain both will increase, and for unloading path both will decrease, but loading and unloading will not coincide each other, and this amount of energy will be released in the process of loading and unloading, and you might see a permanent deformation or permanent strain stored in the material. There are different design methodologies to design the pavement. There may be an empirical method, maybe a mechanistic imperial design method. So what is empirical method? The empirical methods are method where you don't have any relationship or systematic relationship between stress and strain. Don't have any constitutive relations, but you design because of some empirical equations or some regression based methodologies. Like you have constructed several pavements of several thicknesses, you allowed number of v's different configurations of load to pass through that pavement, and you measure the performance criteria, that means cracking and wetting on those pavements. So based on that data, that testing data, you have made some empirical equations to relate the number of crossing of vehicles and the deformation or the failure. Because of this relation, you can design your pavement. So this type of relation doesn't have any empirical or use of any constitutive relationships, and that's why these are empirical or purely based on experience, a methodology which is purely based on experience. And there could be the second design procedure, which could be a blend of mechanistic and empirical, have some input because of the constitutive relationship of the material, where you know that if you apply this amount of load, that much amount of strain will be developed. And you also have a empirical relationship, experience based relationship between stress and performance. So this type of methodology is known as mechanistic empirical, so where performance as well as the fundamental material characteristics both play the role. IRC 37 or IRC method is one of an example of mechanistic empirical design. So here in this course, we are only going to see the one methodology to design a flexible pavement. There are different methods to design, like Ostho method, which is a purely regression method till 1993. Later on, they are revising and they are making it as a mechanistic empirical design. Our IRC 37 method, which is a mechanistic empirical. There are methods coming from Asphalt Institute, from Australian um, agencies, etc., to design this flexible pavement. But here in this course, we are only going to see this IRC 37 method of designing flexible pavement. But before seeing the method, let's see how to get the load for and design. Let's not make this video too large. So let's discuss how to calculate the load or load calculation in case of flexible pavement in the next class. Thank you.